This is how I'm cutting this out. I have taken a piece of just regular copy paper and I just made a design. I didn't get the measurements, but I saw this off of a Chinese, I think it was Chinese YouTube channel, and this was the general shape of it, and I kind of liked this better than just gathering up the ends, because this fits your face better, and I'll show you how when I get to that point. So this is 10.5 inches long. It fits an adult female face generally, and I have a fold here in the middle, so I can add 1/2 inch here if I'm doing this for a big a larger adult, say a male, or a larger person than I am, and I'm kind of average. So I'm gonna pin this back down. So it's 10.5 long, and it's 7.5 inches from the edge to the edge, and of course you're going to have 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, and I'll show you how to fold it and everything then. So basically I'm just going to lay my ruler up against this so I don't totally destroy my little pattern, and I'll just cut this. You can cut it with scissors if you want. I'll get a better result if I use this, because I've chopped up the edges of this pattern just a little bit, so it's somewhat distorted. So I get this cut out, and then I'm going to show you how to put it together. So I'm going to set that over there. So there's one end. And I save these little things because one of these days I'll make a quilt out of all those little pieces, little scrappy thing. And that little piece of lavender just may be what I need to make it gorgeous. Now you can change these dimensions if you feel like that isn't enough, or if you make one and you decide that it isn't big enough. Of course you can adjust that, but as long as you have these ends, the way this is cut here makes all the difference in this particular style. And I like this style better because it fits my face better, and I can put a little piece of wire, which I'm going to show you, over the nose. And having been in the medical profession years ago, working for an oral surgeon, I know how important it is not to have to adjust your mask while your hands are busy. You can't. So, okay, so we're going to take this over the machine. I'll take it off of here and show you how to put it together. I want to show you a couple of things about elastic. There has been a run on elastic. You can't find the small elastic anywhere. This stuff, I happen to have some of this, not very much, but this is about 1.5 millimeters right here, and you can't even get it on the internet because it's just all gone. This you can use for these masks. You can use stuff, some elastic that's up to about 3 millimeters max, because when you put that behind your ear, it's kind of uncomfortable for some people. Depends on how your ear's attached to your head, but the smaller stuff, like this 1.5 millimeter, is better. The next best thing would be this is 1/4 inch elastic right here, and I started cutting this right down the middle. Now you can't do that to all elastic. This is a braided This is braided elastic. It's very soft, and it's the kind of elastic that you might put in the waistband of some pajamas or something that's pretty soft. So this and this, same kind of elastic. One thing you can do with this is you can cut it down the middle. If you just get on one of those grooves and just cut it all the way there. Now you're only going to need, I don't have a set amount for the elastic, but I usually just use my my pattern. And if I'm making one where this is folded, so this would be a woman size, I just measure from this end to this end, and that's about how long my elastic is. If I push this out and unfold this and make it a 1/2 inch bigger for an adult male, then I would still use the end-to-end measurement for that, maybe just a little bit bigger. You can always tie a knot in these earpieces here to shorten it up, but you can't get it longer, and this stuff just doesn't stretch out. There's rubber inside there, and then it's got that nylon braid over it. Even this has rubber on the inside, and it has nylon braided over it. So this is, let's see, this is probably about 1/2 inch wide. It came that way. This is 1/4 inch. But I just wanted to show you how you can cut this down. I like this one. Let me get some to point with. I don't know if this will work. I like this this size right here, where there's about 4. It's got little grooves in it, and it's got about 4 little grooves. That's a comfortable size. And this 1/4 inch that's divided in half, so something about 1/8 of an inch, is pretty comfortable to wear. This is okay too, but sometimes this bothers me a little bit. Now, because all the stores are out of elastic, especially Hobby Lobby has put out a whole bunch of this stuff. They are putting this in the shelves where the empty shelf is, where the elastic cord used to be, because they sell some craft cord. It's online. I don't have any of it, but they sell some craft cord that's a little bigger than 1.5 millimeters. It's probably, some of it is 3 millimeters, and some of it is like 2 millimeters. This is, let me see if it has millimeters. This is 0.7 millimeters diameter. This is that transparent, stretchy stuff. I don't know if you can see it right there. It's transparent, but it does have some stretch. But since you're not trying to sew over it on these masks, you create a kind of a loop and you tie the ends together. This might work. I haven't tried this in a practical situation, so we may just make one like that and try it and see if that'll work. But as far as the strength and the stretchiness, they use this for bracelets and necklaces and stuff like that. It's pretty strong and it's pretty stretchy. So if you can make that work, more power to you. I would say this is probably the last resort. Okay, here I want to show you how to put a little piece of metal in the nose, in the top, so that it will fit over the nose, just so they can get it close up to their face. There are several options to do this. You can use floral wire, you can use jewelry wire. Most people, if you can't get out and get stuff, you gotta use what you have, right? This is a pipe cleaner, and I found that if I divide this into about thirds, that length right there is long enough to go over the bridge of somebody's nose and hold that mask in place. So pipe cleaners, an option. This is a large, one of these jumbo paper clips, only this one doesn't have the plastic on it. This is just a regular one. And I have straightened it out with some pliers. These pliers have little pads on the end. It makes them not, well, what these pliers do is it prevents perforating this little plastic cover that's on this particular type of paper clip. I happen to have a box of those colorful paper clips, and they're all covered with this plastic. This would be good if you're going to wash it and use it again. It'll probably help it last longer. Now this is a jumbo size, that's a jumbo size, it's this size right here, the extra big ones. Now this one down here is kind of small. You could use that for a child's mask or a small person, and that one is made with this size. That probably doesn't show up too well. Okay, so what you do is you just, we're gonna zigzag over it. Where you can put it on the inside or the outside. I have done it both ways. I kind of like the one that I put on the outside because if it breaks, and you know, when you bend a wire often enough, it's going to crack and break right there. So I zigzag mine on the outside. They're not uncomfortable because they're kind of fuzzy, and these probably are not, don't meet specifications that would be required if you were going to use this in some kind of surgery. Now, I'm going to make this different colors on each side, and the reason is this helps the person who's using it to know which side is the inside and which side is the outside. Now, mine are reversible. You can wear them either direction. You can have it with these seams on the outside. This pipe cleaner can be on the inside or the outside. You just have to, if the material though, if the fabric it's made out of is the same on both sides, you're going to have to remember which side is your inside. And if you have this formed to your face, like this one is formed to my face because I've been wearing it all morning, you will know which side is the side that goes against your face. Never, never, never just go, oh, well, I'm going to flip this around and wear the other side towards my face. Don't do that. If there's any contamination that you've come in contact with, it's going to be on the outside of this mask. Whatever's on the inside is yours. So I've got right sides together. What I'm going to do, let me grab my pattern. I'm going to leave one end open for turning. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to go all the way around the whole thing and stop right here so that I can turn it inside out or outside out. Anyway, I'm going to turn it. Okay, so let me get set up to do that. So I've got right sides together. It's a good idea to pin it so that these corners, because these corners are crucial and you don't have a lot of play, it's very important to get those matched up real well. Okay, I have sewn around this entire thing, leaving this end open for turning. I'm going to use a pipe cleaner on this one, and you could use one of these paper clips. I really think these are too stiff. I really don't like them. This feels more like it just feels a little bit more like what a regular industrial type mask feels like. And I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to curl. I'm just going to twist a little curl in the end of that so that it doesn't stick anybody and so that it doesn't poke through the fabric. So I've just got a little curl right there on the end. And these are just a whole lot easier for me anyway to manipulate. I also saw a video online where the person making these was using twisty ties that like you would use on a bread wrapper or a plastic bag of some kind. So what I'm going to do is put this in the seam allowance. So I've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance going along here, and I'm going to try my best to keep this up in that seam allowance, and I'm going to zigzag from one end to the other. Now this way, hopefully, when I turn this inside out or outside out or something, this will still be real close to the top, and I can just do a little stitch to keep it there. So I'm going to put it on the sewing machine here and just eyeball it to get it centered. Do a little bar tack at one end. Let me get my bar tack going here. Let's do that size. You just want to avoid hitting that thing, that wire with your needle. You don't want to go broke by needles here. So let me get situated. Make sure you can see. Okay, I've got that right where I want it for a bar tack. So here we are. We're going to do a bar tack. Just go slow. Try to keep that in the seam allowance. Needle up, and I'm going to go to a longer stitch so I can just zigzag down the thing. I'm just going to go kind of slow over that because I use those expensive titanium needles, and you don't have to replace them as often unless you hit something, and they're a little more expensive than the other needles, and I like to preserve them if I can. Okay, so there's a bar tack at that end. So there it is, attached to the inside there. So now I'm going to turn this and see how it looks, how it feels too, because we need to know how it feels. Because some little person is probably going to have it on their face, probably for hours at a time. Excuse me. So I'm going to poke that part through there, trying to keep from bending it all to heck. I really prefer the idea of just nailing these to the outside because they're just going to be easy to replace. But for those of you who are wanting this thing to be on the inside, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Okay. Let me get the little turning doodad. Where is it? Now, I always put my tools away, but then I never can find them. Well, phooey. I'll just use these. Find something to poke out your corners. There it is. Under stuff. Okay. You could also serge around this. If you have a serger, you could just serge this whole, this whole thing. And then when it comes to that, putting that little pipe cleaner on there, you'll have to do your zigzag. There we go. I don't know where that little wire is, so I'm trying to be careful so I don't screw it up. Definitely, this takes less time if you put that wire on the pipe cleaner on the outside of it. Okay, there's one end, so let's get this end straightened out. Now I'm going to take this over to the iron and to the ironing board and press it because I want it to be neat. Ta-da! And I want my, there's that little wire. Now see what was, the wire is right inside here. It's right there, and we're going to put a seam. I'm going to press it first, but maybe not. Maybe I should put that seam in there right now. And then we're going to press that and then put a seam about 1/4 of an inch below that just to keep it in place. And I'm not going to zigzag that one. I'm just going to go from one end to the other, or close to the end. I think I'll just do a little straight stitch under there just to keep that from rolling or from getting lost in there. So you can feel where the end of it is, and I'm going to get, and I think I'll also do I will do a small stitch, and I probably need to do left needle position just so I don't hit that. Get that thread in there. Okay. So there's the end of it. I think I'll start sewing right there. And I'm going to sew down to here, and I'm pushing it as far up into that seam as I can. I'm going to back stitch a little because mine are reversible. I want them to be, I mean, not reversible, reusable. And so if you wash this, hopefully put it in one of those little lingerie bags or something to keep this little wire from getting too beat up. Because, oh, dang, I'm out of bobbin thread. Don't you just love it? Let me fix my bobbin. Oh. You know, if you sew much, I'm winding my little bobbin here. It's going like crazy. But if you sew very much, you know that it's always at the most critical point that your bobbin runs out. It's the law. It's just Murphy's Law. And so Murphy's Law is definitely in play here. I've got this big old spool of thread back here, but you know, that's one thing with domestic machines, well, maybe even big old hulking machines too, but they just don't seem to make a bobbin that lasts very long. And so now we're using these great big commercial spools of thread. It just seems like they would figure out a way to, that looks like it's good, they would figure out a way to make the bobbin bigger. Of course, I shouldn't complain because this machine is 40-something years old, and it's probably, even despite its age, it is probably the best domestic machine that's ever been made. This is a Pfaff 1222E, and they just don't make them like this anymore. All this needle threading business is on the outside, so you can see it, you know where it's going, and it's got this little needle threader. Perfect. The only thing, I guess, if I'm going to complain about anything, would be that I need a cabinet. I need big space out here, and I just don't have it with this machine. And I had a Singer before I had this one when I was a kid. Yeah, I've been sewing that long. Anyway, I got spoiled to having a big old cabinet with lots of space out here on the left side. And oh, let me draw that bobbin thread up in there. Anyway, I got spoiled to that, and then this was kind of hard to get used to, not having that. It makes free form or free motion quilting a little more difficult on a machine like this, because you just don't have that space to scoot stuff around. But I would love to have a cabinet for this puppy. Anyway, I've managed for over 40 years with this machine, and I really am stuck on it. Okay, now we're gonna try sewing that little seam down right under that pipe cleaner, just to keep it in place. So I'm gonna straight stitch once or twice, and then go back, and then go forward and go down there. So this little line of stitching is just almost imperceptible, and it's just gonna keep that little pipe cleaner from rolling. We don't want that to roll. So let me, oh, that's beautiful. See, it's not obnoxious. The little stitch here it's not obnoxious, and see, that's gonna, there's where somebody's nose is gonna be right there. Okay, so I'm gonna straighten it out. I try not to bend that thing any more than I have to, because every time you bend it, you shorten the life of it. So I'm going to go over to the iron and press this. Okay, I have pressed my seams. I pressed over this little pipe cleaner with that stitch there. And so I just pressed all my seams open and just flattened it out pretty good. One thing that I need to tell you is to take a little ruler while you're pressing it, while you're over there at the ironing board, and 1 5/8 inches from the top side, fold it. So 1 5/8 inches, let me get a different ruler here. One that you can see better. I don't have one. Well, we'll just have to get along with this one. So here's my little ruler. It's kind of hard to see against that thing. Anyway, this is 1 5/8 inches from here to here. So then on the other side, just fold it up to wherever it is and leave just a little bitty gap in the middle. Not much. That's probably, oh, it varies, you know, because your sewing isn't rocket science. So that varies from like maybe 3/16 of an inch to probably maximum a quarter. But this is 3/16 right in here, this little gap between where these things meet. And then, so I pressed where I left that open. We're going to go around there and stitch that. But you can, as you press it, you can get those under control and then fold that down. So you're going to kind of like mitering these corners. Let's get that off there. So when you press it, you're going to kind of, those corners are going to kind of come together. Probably do better on this end. The corners will come together just like that. And then the elastic is going to go underneath here. So right now I'm going to top stitch along the outside edge of the whole thing, and I'm not going to top stitch across here because I'll probably hit that wire if I do. So I'm going to start my top stitch here. I'm going to go all the way around, and as I'm going around, I'll be closing up this place where I left it open. And then I'll get to the other side and I'll stop right before I hit that wire. So I'm going to do that right now real quick. Get our little, go back to center needle position. And we'll feel, what you want to do is feel where that wire is. And you want to start stitching beyond that. So you're going to just right on the edge. It's right there. And now, you could, I guess, you could skip this part if you're making disposable masks, but I would like for this one to last for a while. So I'm going to do my best job on it. I'm going to make it as durable as I can. So here we go. It's top stitching on the edge, a couple of stitches back and then forward, and we're just going to get right on the edge. One of the neat things about this machine is that it has this little gizmo back here on the back, and it's this little thing right here, and it pulls the fabric through on the top. So it's almost like having feeder dogs on the top and on the bottom, and it's kind of an even feed system, or you might say it is a walking foot built in. A lot of people have walking feet that they bought as an accessory to their sewing machine, but they have to buy it extra, and it's got this big old box looking thing sitting on the back of it. And I don't guess that's any big deal, but it's kind of a shame that you'd have to take, put an extra thing, a foot, on your machine just to have it. You want a walking foot all the time because you want to match everything. You know, if you don't have a walking foot and you're sewing along, usually the two pieces that you're joining together, one of them comes out shorter or longer than the other one. Matching plaids kind of can be done on a regular foot, but it's kind of it can be a nightmare. It depends on the fabric, but it's a piece of cake with the walking foot that's just built in. You just expect that to be there and operate all the time, 100% of the time. And that's one of the things that makes this machine very unique. And it was just like when they came out with this walking foot, this was the first machine on a domestic machine that had a walking foot that was integrated. Only ones that had it before then were commercial machines, like what they call power machines, or an industrial. Okay, I'm just going to go right up to that wire and back stitch a few times. Where is my scissors? There they are. Okay, so we'll cut that. And this machine, I don't know how many stitches per inch, or let's see, what would you call it? Stitches per minute it will do. But you can really floorboard this thing and it will go like crazy. All right, so we've got a really nice looking. So by pressing these things, when I have them over at the ironing board, now I can top stitch right along these folds, and that helps to give this one its shape, because this one has the seam already in it, already done. It kind of gives it that box shape. It's a little hard to tell on these because they're dark and it's hard to see the fabric, or it's hard to see where everything is because the fabric is dark and it's got a busy print on it. So I'm going to top stitch along these folds, both of them, and then we'll put the elastic in. So I'm going to back stitch at both the beginning and the end of, and I'm just getting right on the edge. All I want to do is make a fold, and it'll be a permanent fold because it will have a top stitch keeping it there. So there's one, and one side, we'll just turn it right around and do the other side. Also, the pedal on this one is a solid state, and so you can move it one stitch at a time with your foot, which is very difficult to do with any other kind of machine, because you hit that thing and it either goes wild or it sits there and looks at you and laughs. Okay, we got all our little doodads trimmed. Okay, let's take a look. All right, so we've got top stitch along here. We've got the nose thing right there. We've got these nice crisp folds right here that are going to be important to the structure of this thing. So let's look at the elastic and figure out what we're going to do on that. I started cutting this 1/4 inch elastic right here, and I've gotten a little ways down. And like I said before, the same thing. I just kind of roughly measure it by the length of the mask from edge to edge. And of course, this one's had the seams gone. I usually measure that while I'm on the pattern. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue to cut this. And this is a little bit of a slow process. Because, well, maybe it is for me, and it might not be for you. You need very sharp scissors, for one thing. And you need very good reading glasses. And because you're going to cut right in between those little grooves on there. And this won't ravel. It's not as cute as the other kind of elastic, but you know, beggars can't be choosy, because here we are in the middle of a crisis, and now this is tricky. Maybe I should come at it from the other end. There's nothing to hang on to over there. Okay, let me get the right groove. I think it's that one. Let's see, this is right there. Anyway, here we are in the middle of a crisis, and we need elastic, and no longer, hopefully, that these masks will need to be used. I hope that this one will last through many washings and many patients, and be just used over and over and over until it's just completely worn out, and then I want it to be thrown away, because we can always replace these little masks. Now, as you can guess, we're going to lay this elastic. We're going to lay it right in that fold, and then we're going to try not to sew on top of it, because we want it to slide, because we're going to have to attach the ends together. So get it as close as you can to that fold. Actually, I probably ought to do it like that, and then fold that over. Then it's probably a good idea to fold these two things out of the way, and so that you have a clear shot at this. So let me get something to point with. Okay, this will do, maybe. So you're going to, probably shouldn't use my seam ripper. Anyway, you're gonna stitch from this point. You're not gonna go all the way up there, but you're gonna stitch from that point down to this point. So from this little corner to that little corner, and hopefully you won't run over your elastic. Try to keep it out there on the edge. So let me get this around here so I can see it. And or, you know, you could, since we're using this flat elastic, you could probably You could probably do this and thread it through there later, but I believe I can miss it here if I put my mind to it. Okay, so let's go a couple of stitches forward, a couple back, and we're just going to sew right on the very edge of that little flap, and then go backwards. There we go. I'm not being super neat with my stitches, and I'm using contrasting threads so you can see where everything is. Whoop, and get that. Okay, let's take a look. Let's see if our yeah, oh yeah, that just slides right through there like nobody's business. Okay, so you can either tie this together in a little knot. I think that's what I'm going to do, is just tie it together, but I'll do the other end first and then we'll tie it. So here's the other piece. We're going to scoot that close to here. Okay, and get on the end of it there. Just feel of it and make sure you don't have the elastic under the needle. Okay, so there we go. So here's what it looks like on this end. So we've got that pushed down like that, and you're going to sew right to that corner where my thumbnail is, and then back on. Same thing on the other corner. Okay, here we go. Of course, this goes a lot faster when you're not trying to film it. Okie doke. Okay, let's back up from here a little bit. Now, let's trim our little threads. Okay. All right, you're just about done, sports fans. So let's tie this in a little half hitch. Do you know what a half hitch is? You put both of your ends together, and now this elastic is pretty stretchy, so and you know, I might just like this better than that cord, that round cord, because this might be just more comfortable behind your ears. So then you can slide it around and try to get that knot someplace where it's not going to be. Maybe at the bottom of the mask would be good. So here's the top of the mask up here where that little pipe cleaner is, and get this knot down here where it's not going to bug you. You don't want it up here because it'll be in your line of vision probably, and you don't want it right behind one of your ears. Of course, you could always overlap this on the ends and zigzag so that it's down there. So you could put a little spot of glue on there to keep that tied, and then trim those little buggers off. Now, we're not done, but we're almost done. The next thing you want to do to box this and make it, the thing about this is it stands up like a little bow. It really fits your face when you do this part. Right here at the corner, move that elastic out of the way. You're going to take this edge and fold it back on itself. And this is kind of awkward, but you're just going to fold it in line with itself and put that corner right up there where that little corner is. So let me do this again. Can you see how that works? You want you want that line, you want those lines to be parallel to each other. Does that? Okay. So I'm going to undo it. So there it is, all flippy floppy. So now we're going to take this, we're going to fold it in half, really, right about there, and it's going to be kind of at an angle. And you want to fold it. I think I was in the shadow. So you're going to take it right here, fold it right about there, and then get it up that way. And hopefully you can see where this is. Here's what it looks like. So I'm going to sew that down right there. I'm just going to line those two seams up and get it, and just press it down flat. Actually, I can pin it. I can pin all four of them at the same time. I'll just pin it like that and see how that makes kind of a little corner out of it. And this corner is, it's, you know, it's gonna square up on your face. You're gonna really enjoy wearing this. It's comfortable. Okay, so let's do, so we've got this one. This is the top of your mask. Here's your little pipe cleaner over here. Take this and fold it, excuse me, fold it up there. So that it meets up with that corner. You don't want to get it all the way up there because you don't want to sew over that elastic. Let's see. That's going to be pinned, and we'll sew it down in a second. So there's again, you've got a corner. You've got a corner over here on the left side, and you've got a corner over here on the right side. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom. Pull that out of the way. Okay. We're going to fold this piece up so that that corner meets the other corner. And there it is right there. These two edges are parallel. So let's stick a pin. Now, this isn't my idea. I got this off of a Chinese language video, and I don't understand a word they were saying, but I could look at it and tell what they were doing, because I've been sewing for my whole life practically, and it just made sense to me. And I tried one of those kind that's just kind of gathered up on the end, and then when I saw this, I thought, oh my goodness, that fits your face so much better. Plus, there's a little bonus. Plus, if you want to, there we go. Now see, that makes kind of a little boat looking deal, like a little box. What you've done is you've just folded those corners up, and it's going to be at an angle. That one's not exactly where I want it there. Okay. So these little sewing seams on the edge here are going to be at kind of an angle. See, or you can see on this one, the little seams that sew that down are kind of at maybe a 45 or almost a 45, but we're not measuring. But anyway, so one extra thing that you could do to this is take a flat piece of material, serge it on all four edges, and fit it right into here, but don't sew it down at the ends. Just sew it down here and sew it down here, and that creates a little pocket for the nurses to stick some extra filter material through. So let's take a look at, let me sew these down and then we'll take a look at that in a minute. Okay, let me see if I can do this before my battery runs down. So here we are at the corner. We've got that parallel. I'm going to stick it under the needle and nail her down. So I'm going to go back and forth over this a few times because we're building a virtual tank. Okay, I just went back and forth. It's a short seam, and we don't want, and there'll be a little bit of stress on it, so we want it to lay flat though. That's the main thing, because this thing right here will just lay flat up against the person's face, and it fits so much better than those ones that are just gathered at the edges. Okay. Do we still have battery? Oh, practically none. Okay, let's see if we can do this. And we'll go back, and then back, whoop, and back. Okay. Okay, here's the little 50-cent tip here. Some of the girls, some of the nursing girls like to have this little pocket in here. It's a single layer of fabric, and I made it to fit right down into the bottom of the little box of the mask, and I'm going to leave it open at each end, and that way the girls and guys can put whatever, gauze or cheesecloth or even another layer of fabric right in there. They might even want to put mentholatum or something on a piece of gauze and stick it in there. I guess this is the top here, so it would go like so. So I'm going to show you how to sew this in the easy way. If you're a clever girl or guy, you could, if you were planning on this to be in there from the beginning, you could incorporate, or you could lay this thing in here, and then when you do this top stitch right here, you could incorporate that into the top stitch, and you wouldn't have an extra row of stitching. But I'm going to show you to do this, how to do this after the fact, because I didn't think of it before, of doing this into here and showing it to you. So you could do that on both of these top stitched lines, but right now I'm going to just poke this inside out. I mean, what I'm saying is there's a way to do this where you don't have an extra stitch line. Okay, so this is serged. This is just a piece of fabric, and it is serged all the way around so that it doesn't ravel. So I've got my free arm exposed on my sewing machine, and so all I'm going to do is go from one end to the other here. This is just get it just right and in the right spot. And if you're using matching thread, of course, the stitch line isn't even going to show. And you could do a right needle position, and that way it'll be closer. So do a couple of stitches forward and back, and then just go for it. I hope you can see what I'm doing here. It's hard to watch the camera and watch what I'm doing at the same time. Okay, so there's one, there's the top or the bottom or whichever one it is. Let's get that loose. And let's do the other side. See, you're just going to have an extra seam, and that's just not a problem at all. Okay, let's get this under here. This one is the top seam because I can feel that little wire in there. So I measured this. It was about 5 1/8 by about, or no, actually it was 5 inches by 3 1/8 to fit inside this little box. But they're not all going to come out the same, because as you know, everybody's 1/4 inch is a little different. So you should probably measure your mask or your pattern, however, this gave you the basic idea, and yours is going to be a little different, I can guarantee you. Okay, let me take the pins out of this. Little threads off and get our little threads trimmed. That's beautiful. Okay. We don't want to tickle anybody's nose with these little stray threads. The last thing we want them to do is sneeze. Okay. Now, see, that just looks like a flat fell seam right there, and it's just providing more structure for this little guy. So there we go. There's your mask. You've got this little pocket in here that is open at both ends. It's open right here, so you can slide some extra whatever you want in there. You could put gauze or cheesecloth, or that just provides you just one more layer of filtration. Elastic thing there. Let's see. So now I'm going to shape it around my nose. So this seam around here provides a little bit of structure, and this part right here tends to be flat. This fits real good. It lays flat against my face right up here and down here. This is pretty snug. And I could probably tighten these things because those are pretty stretchy. So underneath here, you've got, this part that's underneath the mask fits down here really well, and it keeps all the little gaps closed. Oops, that didn't get quite over. And the little wire that works for over your nose, that seems to work pretty well. And I can probably still, see, I can still wear my glasses with that on if I had to put them up there. Usually I wear my glasses down on my nose like that.